Good evening and welcome to Hello It's Us, Perspectives on Inclusion. This program is dedicated to educating the general public about issues which are important to people with disabilities. But we believe that as you view these programs, you will recognize that these issues are important to everybody because certainly people with disabilities are a major fabric in our general public community. Hello It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development. My name is Mike Honig and I work for the Center for Disabilities and Development as a program coordinator, and I'm also a co-host for Hello It's Us. I'll turn it over to my co-anchor, Keith.
My name is Keith. I'm the co-anchor. I'm retired, but I'm still a disability advocate. And I just published my first book this year.
And now you're getting ready for the second one.
Yes.
How's the blogging going?
Good.
Good. All right. And so you'll have to talk to Keith about his blogging expertise here. We are really fortunate to be beginning a first of a two-part series today on a program called the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Diversity Fellowship Program. And we have several people in studio who are going to be talking with us today. We have two, we've labeled them emerging leaders, but there are many other things. They're students, they're playwrights, they're social workers. So we have Julia Ganda in studio with us. Welcome, Julia. And Jarrell Watkins, our other emerging leader. Welcome, Jarrell.
Thank you.
And we have Don Rudolph, who is the Senior Director of Technical Assistance and Network Engagement at the Association of University Centers on Disabilities. Welcome, Don.
Thank you.
And we have Pam O'Brien, who's a lead project officer with the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming. Pam and Dawn are both from the DC area. They came this morning. We whisked them away to a seminar. I think they had like 10 minutes to eat, and they're here. So we really appreciate you all being here. We'd like to start out by just giving you all a chance to share a little bit about your backgrounds. Whatever you might like to share, whether it's personal or professional, that led you into the areas of disability and diversity, because this entire segment, or these two shows, are going to be focusing on the intersection of diversity and disability. And Jarrell, let's start with you.
Certainly. So my background is as an educator and also as a creative writer, an interdisciplinary artist. So I do everything from martial arts to poetry, playwriting, theater, hip hop, music, and also put it in my pedagogy and practice as an educator. My previous experience, right now I'm a graduate student at the Iowa Writers Workshop, but my previous experience is really teaching K-12 and also working, K-12 and also working in jails as a reentry case manager. And what brought me to particularly working in disabilities, or thinking about that, is the work that I was doing as an educator and a reentry case manager. And like over the years I was working, I often saw that individuals with disabilities weren't getting the services that they needed in order to thrive in those communities. So, and I didn't have the skills necessarily to do that work as well. So when I saw this opportunity, I wanted to equip myself to be able to give back to my community.
Excellent. It sounds like you've got lots in your background there. So that's great. Julia, what about you?
All right, so what led me to the fellowship was just within my undergrad, I worked as a direct care staff at Reach for Your Potential here in Iowa City. And so I provided direct care to individuals with disabilities. And through that, it helped me choose my major of doing my undergrad in social work. And then right now, currently, I'm getting my master's in social work. So just within the field and within my background working on Reach for Your Potential just led me to this great opportunity and just working at CDD.
Great. Boy, it's just fascinating how people get where they get to. It's just great. So Pam, how about you go next? Tell us how you came to OIDD and specifically in the area of disability.
Well, early on I was I've had extensive experience in special ed and working with children with special needs in the public and private sector. And then I came to federal government as a member of the President's Committee for People with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. And then at the same time, I was a member of the Federal Tri-Agency Leadership Council that instituted the first Project Search. I don't know if you are aware, but it's a national program for high school seniors with special needs. And we put it in the federal government, across the federal government, in Washington, D.C. So we partnered with D.C. Public Schools, and the students, I am happy to say that we had 20% ended up in government employment, and the rest, I think, are at least 50% of those are now employed as well. So it was, yeah, it was successful. And now I'm working as a project officer for the AUCD network. There's 67 across the United States and territories. And prior to joining PCPID, I was an education consultant for newly forming schools and founding principal of 2 alternative education programs in Maryland. And I have been an adjunct professor for pre-service training in special ed, crisis and clinical counseling, as well as human development.
Yeah, that's great. You know, quite an education and background and helping get a lot of things off the ground. So,
John, let me hear from you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I've just learned that Julie and I have a common background, because I also started working in the field as a direct support professional, working with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I can honestly say my first job was at 19 years old, working full-time in an institution. I worked there for 4 years and learned a lot of things that were wrong. Yeah. And then I worked in group homes for a few years, and then I got my degree in special ed, and I taught early intervention to teach little kiddos and their families all those critical skills. But I have to say I really miss working with adults in trying to get to more community-based settings. So ended up going back to school and get my master's degree so that I could run the programs instead of have them run what I thought was the wrong way. So, then I sort of moved into administration in community living programs and in state government in Washington, D.C. and their Developmental Disabilities Administration. And in those roles did a lot of supervision and training and budgeting and policy development at the community and state levels. So I kind of now sort of moved up into the national level. So the nonprofit that I work with now, the Association of University Centers on Disabilities, we support a whole national network of university-based research, education, and service centers, all of whom are trying to move forward policy at the federal and state level. So my job basically is to help them do their jobs better.
excellent. And we're going to get into AUCD 101 shortly. I think we'll jump back. Thanks everybody for your great introductions. I think we'll jump back to Pam here for a moment and talk just a little bit about the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. I still want to call it ADD, but that just shows how old I am, right? So, but it is now.
No, it just changed in the last, I guess, 6 months.
Yeah, okay.
Or less.
So what are some of the things that you do where, I know you're housed.
The Administration for Community Living, and the Administration for Community Living was created in 2012. so it's relatively new. And it was created around the principle that older adults and people with disabilities should be able to live in their homes with services and supports they need, and to be able to live with people they choose and participate fully in the community of their choice.
Great.
Now, I just wanted to say a few more things.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we at ACL are making this principle a reality for millions of Americans across the country every day. And you might wonder how. Does anybody know? We provide services and supports through the network of community-based organizations that we fund. And so that would be like one that you're very familiar is the Developmental Disabilities Network that Dawn is involved with. We have 4 programs that are administered by the Administration on Disability, and they are the UCEDs, like the one we're in right now, the P&As, and in Iowa you have the Disability Rights Iowa, and they protect the rights of people with disabilities and mental illness. And then you have the Governor's Council on Disability, on developmental disabilities, and they work to make change in Iowa in systems and services so that it's accessible and make people's lives a little more like everybody else and should be. So these 4 programs, I forgot about the projects of national significance. They're intertwined in all 3 of the other programs. And they're all authorized by the Developmental Disability Assistance and Bill of Rights Act. And because of that, that's our, we move from, everything emanates from the DD Act, everything that we support. So the UCEDs and collaborate with the DD councils in Iowa and the P&As to improve well-being and quality of life for people with disabilities, including intellectual disabilities. And things like employment. You help people get jobs in integrated competitive employment. So that means working in places where other people are working and getting paid the same. And they look at housing. And I know that at the UCED, they're working on a program, Money Follows the Person. And they're helping people get apartments and continue working and become self-sufficient. And that's what we work towards. And then the P&As, of course, are about rights and helping people remove barriers to transportation to get to a job. Or also we look at healthcare disparities and try to remove those barriers. So another program that we fund is HAVA, Help American Vote Act. And the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities oversees the disability provisions of the HAVA Act. And the emphasis is obviously on accessibility and trying to get more people with disabilities in the voting process, active in the voting process. And I know that's important to Iowans because you have the Iowa caucus upcoming. Okay, by investing in programs like education, research, and innovation programs like the diversity fellowships that you're going to hear about in a little while. I did want to say that the Office of Intellectual Development also worked with AUCD and the Multicultural Council of AUCD in response to the increasingly diverse population across the U.S. Leaders and professionals in the UCED network should come from varied backgrounds so that they are prepared and equipped to address the needs. So the DDAC speaks to the importance of cultural and linguistic competency. And it states that services and supports should be given in a manner that's responsive to the people receiving it. So that helped OIDD to award diversity fellowship and to get the momentum behind this diversity and cultural linguistic initiative.
Could you give the audience an overview of AUCD?
Sure, thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. My organization, AUCD, is the Association of University Centers on Disabilities. We are 2 blocks outside of Washington, D.C., but definitely in the D.C. area. We are a strong disability advocacy and policy organization, or a nonprofit organization. We are also a membership organization, and our members are these university-based centers all around the United States, including the territories. We are driven by a strategic plan. Our executive director led us in a strategic planning process. We have a number of strategic priorities, and one of them is to model diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so in our effort to do that well, we really had to look at who our network members are, who our staff are, who our collaborators are, and make sure, as Pam mentioned earlier, that we are reflecting the very diverse communities of the United States of America. So we have a number of initiatives. I think it was back in 2014. ACL had asked us to create a diversity and inclusion toolkit. I might give a little plug for that. That is at the website is www.implementdiversity.tools. And it is for the university-based centers and programs, although I'm sure it is very useful for many others. But it has a number of objectives that these specific audiences can be working towards to help ensure that they are inclusive, that they are reflective of the cultures of the people that they serve. And in the process of doing all that work, we really did have to take a good hard look at who we are. And realize that a lot of our work is in higher education because it's at university centers. They do the research and the service and the education to move the field forward, but not everybody has equal access to higher education. And so we were very pleased when the Administration for Community Living decided to fund the diversity fellowships. And then what our office does in a technical assistance role is help everyone do what they do better. We support the diversity fellows. We support the universities who host them, and we support them in a small learning community so that I think, in the 5 years or so that there have been diversity fellowships, there are over 100 diversity fellows across many states and territories, but in many places, they may be the only person of color, they may be the only person with a disability in that UCED training program, and that feeling of aloneness is not a feeling that we want our our members to be having. So I hope, Julie and Jarrell could speak to this, but I hope that providing a learning community and having the opportunity to talk with other folks who are also fellows in other states to provide a feeling of, not being alone and having a cohort of folks that you can problem solve with and learn with together. We hope that that contributes to growth and future careers in the field of disabilities, because we really need you young leaders.
What I would like to bounce back to then, in the about 5 minutes that we have left before we really dive into the content of the diversity fellowships for you two, the two of you, Julie and Jarrell, I would like to follow up with the question. We're going to put you on the spot a little bit, because I think we at the Iowa UCD, we're getting better, we're getting a little more diverse, but we are still pretty white. So I would really be interested in your comments about just the learning community. I mean, you both have been, since you've started, pretty visible. I know that I was really disappointed the first day when you came and we didn't have a lot of people welcoming you for a variety. I think it was just a scheduling thing, but it seems like that you have found some niches and found some opportunities. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear your thoughts just about the learning environment and any recommendations that you might have for and what things we here in the middle of Iowa can still need to kind of be thinking about.
I think for me personally, I received it was welcoming, because I decided to stay through me being in Len now. So I think it was welcoming, and I think the fact that we always knew that we had Derek there, always helped, and that we had somebody that we could talk to if we were struggling with anything. And then also our mentors too, Ann and Patty and Tammy, they were all always there for us too. And then we also had support through through the meetings that we had with the AUCD team members and everything. So we had I've always felt supported, and at least on a personal but I mean, of course there could be more diversity within just within the CDD in itself, but I feel like with us being there and hopefully there being more fellows, I think it's a great start. So at least.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Jarrell, again?
Yes, I have a couple thoughts. I do feel there's support, but I also feel like the support is more so on the side of excitement for this opportunity and the work that we're actually doing. In my particular experience, it was hard because I'm coming in as an African-American male from the South too, and so Iowa's a new home for myself as well. I've only been here for a year, and trying to make connections with the community for the Capstone Project, right? Because when I come at the intersection of education, of thinking about incarceration and reentry, of thinking about poetry and creative arts, and I wanted to do a capstone project related to that, right? And actually going out and having support for the UCD and only doing that kind of work, there was excitement for it for sure, and definitely Derek, definitely Patty, definitely Tammy, and Ann gave that support. But that was something that I had to grapple with myself and really figure out, okay, I was the bridge between the UCD and the community here, but yet and still, I was new to the community. And that's something that I'm still wrestling with, and I think I'll write about in my reflective essay that I will probably post or submit to the AUCD and also the UCD.
Be really interested to see that. I think that that honesty is very much appreciated, because I think, you've had a lot of both of you have had, adjusting to do, and especially you, Jarrell, just coming here. And I hope we're welcoming and it's good to know that the mentors that are set up to support the diversity fellowship program within the UCD have been helpful too. So.
For sure.
Well, I believe that we have come to a good stop here as we close out our first episode of this mini-series. So I want to thank all of you for coming and joining us, taking time out of your schedules. I know how busy all of you are. And I also, of course, want to thank the viewers and our sponsors, and I'd like to pass it along to Keith for your final thoughts.
Thank you for coming and giving us an overview of what it means to work with disability issues. And out there, the audience, I hope you have a good week and welcome to October. Take care. See you next week. Bye now.